You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday of getting back at you.
We're living in a very dangerous time right now, and liberalism has lost their cotton-picking mind.
The Trump folks, if they found out how we knew what we knew about the Trump staff's dealing with Russians, that they would try to compromise those sources and methods.
Nobody ever said anything about resisting Obama. They went at him on legitimate arguments.
I really do believe that much of what you saw coming out of Trump's mouth was a play from Putin's playbook.
Welcome to the Abolitionists Round Table, your all-access pass to exposing fake news, the resistance, and Barack Obama's shadow government undermining American progress. Be a part of the conversation at 734-822-1600. And now, your all-American hosts, Del Marsh and Phil Stargell.
And good morning. This is the Abolitionist Round Table of Michigan. This is your co-host, Phil Stargell. Del Marsh is still on an assignment. He's doing some things that are personal, and if you have the thought come into your mind in the morning and think about it, just say a few prayers for Del Marsh, and I'm sure he'll be coming back into the studio in the next couple of days coming through. But in the meantime, I'm going to carry on and give you some good information, and which is what this program is primarily about, is giving you a perspective of no longer just a conservative viewpoint coming from the Black American perspective, but coming from the Black American abolitionist, Black American modern-day abolitionist, because I want to make the connection with the people that were brave enough to put their lives on the line for the preservation of liberty in this country, because we had a real stain on our promise to the world that this country was a beacon of liberty for the world, and yet and still we had some very, very anti-liberty aspects of the great country called America in the early part of our history, and we have never been able to live that down. And one of the reasons why we can't live it down is because the white Americans that put their lives on the line to ensure that Black Americans were able to achieve all of the good things that America presented to the world. They had to put their life on the line so we could get that. And somehow or another, the Democrat Party has been able to stick their nose in this and come out like they were the ones that did all of this, because they have the undying loyalty of Black Americans in this country. And every chance I get, I'm going to let the people know that the Democrat Party is the cause of all the problems in this country, because they are against the only thing in the world that makes America uniquely special and uniquely the only country in the world that presents liberty as their main attraction, because people come from all over the world knocking at the door of America to get into this country. And we have the opportunity and the pleasure of living in this country, and we would throw all of that away just because of somebody else's idea of how this country should be. And that somebody is the leaders of the Democrat Party, they have made this country, put this country at the doorstep of a living hell because they want to turn this country into a socialist paradise. All because they are power mad and they will do anything to maintain that power. So I'm going to give you some reasons why I came to that conclusion, and then we're gonna give people a chance. We'll go to the phones, and that number, by the way, is 734-822-1600. And if you have anything that you'd like to say about some of the things that I'm going to say this morning, because they will be provocative, I guarantee you, and you will never hear anybody on the airways saying things that I'm going to say this morning. First of all, again, I want to repeat that number, so if you want to get a chance to call in and address this, because I did get some correspondence that says that that I haven't given people a chance to speak against some of the things that I've said over the last couple of weeks. So, if you have an objection to how I run this phone line, call in and we'll address it. But I believe that I give everybody ample time to state what it is that their problem is, or whatever their point of view is. I'll let them hear it, and I'll hear you out. But I think that if you don't have an answer to some of the questions that I asked, then I believe that that problem with not being able to speak your mind might be on your end of it. So anyway, we'll hash that out as the day goes on. But in the first thing, I want to just go back, because in the news, everybody is talking about the shooter in Las Vegas, and I'm not going to even dignify this clown with using his name, because I personally believe that a lot of this is for the notoriety of being the first and being the only and being this and being that. And I say that this fool, this devil worshiper, this instrument of the devil was only into this for notoriety. He would probably be, ISIS has taken credit for this. This is how ill in the mind the people that adhere to those types of ideas are. They want to destroy what we have, and that's exactly what this guy was about. And what he is about is destroying the opportunity to maintain a country where liberty is the ultimate objective of the government. Now, we can't do that with the Democrats, because every time you come up with an idea that will increase the opportunities to achieve maximum liberty in this country, they want to compromise it. And that is the first thing that Republicans need to learn. And as voters, we have to learn it. And the only way that you're going to stop compromise is you have to understand exactly what it is that you're trying to accomplish. These Democrats have only one thing in mind when they offer a compromise. That is to stall until they can assume the power, the mantle of power. Once they get into power, then they will institute things that will take away liberty. First thing they want to do is take away the Second Amendment rights in this country, because they've already taken away the First Amendment rights. You see, the First Amendment has been taken over by political correctness, and every time somebody objects to something that the Democrats propose, first thing they do is call them homophobes or racist or sexist. They have an list to every example that you can come up with. And the thing is that they compromise the First Amendment, because if you identify what the real effects of some of their proposals are, the first thing they do is call you whatever it is that the political identity is for that particular proposal that they have coming from some special interest group. Usually the minority groups, so-called African Americans, so-called Hispanics, so-called Muslims, Islamists. All of them are groups that are easily identifiable to the Democrat Party, and they have advocates that will come out and say that you are against this group or that group just because you give the truth about what the proposal that the Democrats are putting forth. Give you an example. The civil rights for the DACA. Now, if you're against that, you're against civil rights for Hispanic young people that came here through no effort of their own, no cause of their own. They had nothing to do with it. Somebody brought them here, their parents. Well, but they didn't just come here. They were invited here by Democrats for one reason or another, usually to exploit their labor at a lesser price, at the cost of Americans, because there are reasons for that. Because if you make another proposal, then some other group is going to complain. Generally speaking, it'll be some group of feminists that'll argue, because if you say things like, well, you know, maybe we ought to try to figure out a way to cut back on these abortions. Well, now you're against females. So this is why I say that they have taken the First Amendment and made it a civil right instead of a constitutional right. So only certain groups of people can actually speak freely in this country. If you take into account what I've said about every time you tell the truth about a proposal, if it's in opposition to the Democrats, they're going to reel out all of these special interest groups and call you every name: homophobe, sexist, racist. And, you know, when it comes to racist, they always try to put in the nationalist or supremacist. And none of these words apply. But these college professors will tell you they do. Let's get one of these professors from Duke that said that Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, is a textbook racist. Textbook racist. And then we hear all of these other groups following in behind these professors, and this is why we need some serious education reform in this country. Because every time you talk about reform in education, out comes, guess what? These people talking about, oh, you know, you're a racist and all this. Now, I'm going to give you a quick, this Duke professor, a professor from Duke University, and it says his name, just a second, I'm going to give you his name here. it says Trump is a textbook racist, literally. And it says that the reason why is, it says civil rights advocates, social scientists, and regular citizens have all called our President Trump out as a racist in recent weeks. Yeah, well, so then they turn around and they get angry because he may react to it. But I don't think you could call anybody anything more vile than a racist, than a white supremacist, because of what the history that says what these people really did. See, we've sanitized this thing. We go around saying things like, "Well, this is not the textbook racist. This is subtle. It's not the old where they do this and they do that." Well, but you're advocating what those people did when you assign that to somebody today that wasn't even living when you say that those things were being done, but they weren't the racists of the day, but it's still racism. So I think that that whenever a person like Donald Trump in that position reacts to it, I think that we need to get behind him and at least support him instead of acting as if you don't have any interest in trying to maintain some kind of respect for the office of the president, and allow these people to do these kind of things. Because I've told you that I've looked up some of the things that the racists were supposed to have done in the past, and I've looked at them through different eyes, and I see now that they were able to accomplish what they were able to accomplish simply because they were able to get people to be complacent about what was going on. And now these people have turned the thing around and made it out as if the Republicans were the bad guys and the Democrats were the good guys. That happens because people won't defend themselves. And then they turn around and they won't defend themselves, and they won't let the person that is carrying the torch and carrying the flag for the Republican Party, they won't allow him to defend himself. How can anybody call George Bush II a racist? How could they call the George Bush the first a racist? But they did. They did it, and they continue to do it. And whatever policy that was left, they called that racist. And so what I have in my mind is that we have to say that we're not going to tolerate one side of freedom of speech, the constitutional right, to be co-opted and taken over and made into a civil right instead of a constitutional right, because that's exactly what it is. If you say anything that they can make it out to be racist, then that's exactly what they do, and that's exactly how they fight us. And I'm frankly tired of it. But anyway, what we're going to go to is I want to go back to last week's show when we talked about the football players, because they are continuing their protests by disrespecting the American flag. This again is a Democrat-backed problem. And people like George Soros is putting the money up, and these ball players are actually acting as if they are the poor people of the world. And so, we can just they can just continue to say that they're speaking out. But I still haven't really gotten the players to really say what it is that is their beef, these millionaire ball players. Now, the person that started this, Colin Kaepernick, his own words, I looked them up, and I was going to read them last week, but every time I got ready to read them, but this today I'm going to read what his words were. It says that it says here, this is from NFL's.com Steve Weiss. Colin Kaepernick was asked what was the protest about. He said, "I am not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. To me, this is bigger than football, and it would be selfish on my part to look the other way. There are bodies in the street and people getting paid, leave, and are getting away with murder." And it says the Niners also issued a statement on Kaepernick's decision. It's also worth noting this wasn't the first time this preseason that he sat. Now, this is the original week of his protest. That's what he did a year ago. And so but we also know that there are rules for what these players are supposed to do. And this is what Donald Trump was talking about when he made the statement that the owners were the ones that had the power to do whatever they needed to do to enforce the rules. And also the Players Association, they had the power. So the reason why I'm going back to this is because just recently, the Black Lives Matter movement made a statement that said that the revolution will not uphold the Constitution. Now, in my estimation, the only thing that will protect America is people, politicians, and the people that elect the politicians have to be respecters and admirers of the Constitution. And if that's the case, we can keep America as the only republic in the world. If not, we are going to slide into socialism. Probably we'll go into a full democracy and then into who knows what, probably socialism, communism, and right on into totalitarianism because the Democrat Party will lead that revolution into socialism, and it will be the demise of this country as a republic. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the phones here. Because we're coming up on the break. And we got Joe from Wyandotte. Good morning, Joe. How you doing this morning?
Hold the call.
Hold the call? Okay, we'll hold the call, and we'll go to our first commercial. Again, the phone number, if you'd like to join in on the conversation, is 734-822-1600, and we'll be right back after these messages.
You're listening to the Abolitionists Round Table with your hosts, Del and Phil. They're exposing the left's underground resistance while leading the charge in the fight for liberty. Join the conversation at 734-822-1600.
Hello, I'm Milt, and this is Logically Speaking Uncensored. Stop being a jackass and remove the Democrat donkey party. Saul Alinsky, a radical socialist, presented a 4-point plan for defeating an enemy. 1. Pick the target. 2. Freeze it. 3. Personalize it. And 4. Polarize it. On August 12, 2017 in Charlottesville, Virginia, Alinsky's 4-point plan was activated as Democrat Party approved left-wing renamobs in an orchestrated, premeditated demonstration attacked protesters who objected to removal of Confederate Civil War commemorations. In the aftermath, angered by President Trump's audacity of truth in assigning shared blame to both combatants, the fake media, without any factual proof, began engineering their character assassination, yellow journalism smear campaign by slandering Trump as a racist and sympathizer of the Ku Klux Klan, white supremacy, and Nazism, and thereby implementing Saul Alinsky's 4th rule of polarization in order to divide, separate, and erode Trump's support. Before I begin my commentary, I read several credible history sources to make sure that the collectivist language police could not dispute the accuracy of my content. According to the sources, the donkey as a Democrat Party symbol originated when Andrew Jackson ran for Democrat president in 1828, and his opponents, frustrated by his political stubbornness, began calling him a jackass. Jackson accepted the name and began using the donkey as a symbol on his campaign posters. By 1880, the donkey was established as the Democrat Party mascot. In the dictionary, a donkey is alternatively called a jackass, and it also defines a jackass as someone who is dim-witted and implacable regardless to the lunacy of their positions. The violence in Charlottesville, Virginia, conforms to the ongoing efforts by the Democrat Party to eradicate, rewrite, and purge their evil history so as to legitimize their current fakery as civil rights saints. To accomplish this scam, the Democrat Party concocted the strategy of inspiring legions of rent-a-mob hoodlums and anarchists to destroy, remove, and vandalize what Democrats as white supremacists created. History reveals that Margaret Sanger, a supreme advocate for exterminating blacks and murdering babies by abortion, was esteemed by the Ku Klux Klan and Nazi leader Hitler. And today she is honored by the Democrat Party. Without the benefit of irrefutable history that exposes the horrendous crimes of the Democrat Party as founders of the Ku Klux Klan and generators of white supremacy, segregation, slavery, lynchings, pigmentation politics, institutional racism, torture, and murders, these truths would be buried. If the hoodlums who rampage in Charlottesville are sincere about eliminating Confederate history, they should know that like the donkey and jackass are one and the same, so is Confederate and Democrat history. And you can't stop being a jackass until you eliminate the Democrat donkey party. I am Milt, Logically Speaking Uncensored, saying, think about it.
And we're back. And that was, thanks a lot from Milt Harris for sending that commentary over this morning. And it plays right into what I was saying because I wanted to get the professor from Duke University on after he spoke his commentary because it's very, very close to what I was thinking. It shows you great minds think alike. But anyway, we're going to go to line one and Joe from Wyandotte. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Phil. Good to be up with you this morning.
Oh, great to have you, Joe.
The Democrats, it's all about strategy with their isms. It's all designed to always make a Democrat look like a victim and you an oppressor of some form, and always to keep you from your arguments and make you be defensive.
Yes.
And the racism thing, I got two examples. When Detroit was going to hell in a handbasket and whites were leaving in droves, it was, of course, white flight, and it was all because everybody was a racist. But now that whites are going to move back into Detroit, all of a sudden there's the new term gentrification, and somehow it's racist for whites to want to impose themselves into black neighborhoods.
Yep.
So you can't win. And it's the same thing with culture. If you don't partake in the black culture, you're a racist. You're not diverse. But what happens if you do partake in the culture? It's cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what you do. They will bend it and twist it.
Well, that's because they don't have any rules. And that's why it's so important that we insist that all of our laws be in accordance with the Constitution. Because, like I said, the Democrats have turned the First Amendment into a civil right. That means it's special. It favors a special group. In this case, it's about 4 or 5 groups: the women, the homosexuals, blacks, Hispanics, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, probably the handicapped, because they bring them in too. So it's a couple of more. They all can say whatever they want to say about whoever they want, as long as that person is a white male. They can get away with it. They can call Trump the most vile name I can think of, and that is a white supremacist. Because if you understand what white supremacists, and I ask everybody, if you don't do anything else, go back and look up a guy named Benjamin Pitchfork Ben Tillman of South Carolina and see what he says about white supremacy. He said himself, the Democrat Party is the party of white supremacy. That's all you need to know. And from that point on, how did the Democrats wiggle out of that jacket that he put them in? How did they get out of that? They got out of it by using the Treasury and taxpayer dollars to buy the goodwill of not black Americans, so-called African Americans. That's what he did. That's what the Democrat Party did. They bought their way. They tell you that blacks they're loyal to the Democrat Party because of the '64 Civil Rights Bill. If that's the case, why didn't they continue to be loyal to the Republican Party? Because of the fact that they changed the Constitution. They amended the Constitution. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment to the Constitution addressed slavery and the aftermath of slavery. And yet and still, black people vote up in the 90% plus range for Democrats instead of Republicans. Well, I'll tell you why they vote Democrat. It's because of the 1964 War on Poverty, the 1964 Poor People's March that came there and was given all kind of promises from LBJ. That's why so-called African Americans vote Democrat. And if people don't like that, then tell me why you would vote for a person or a group of people that put you in slavery, kept you in slavery for 200 years, and then turn around and put you in under Jim Crow law for another 100 years. Now,
well, they like to give the Democrats credit for the Civil Rights Act of '64 that you mentioned. You mentioned the constitutional amendments, all because of Republicans.
That's right.
Democrats opposed them. The Civil Rights Act was passed mainly because of Republican votes. Even though Lyndon Johnson was the president who signed it, it wouldn't have passed. Democrats opposed it in the Congress.
yeah, and that was because they had what they wanted. They had civil rights for white people from 1877 up until probably 80 something, maybe when the first Republican governor was made. I think it was in Louisiana, but they had the South, and they call it the Solid South. They wouldn't allow any civil rights legislation or anything to pass as long as they had the Solid South, and they were all Democrats.
Yep. And now blacks fought forever for equal rights. Republicans gave them equal rights, and now they are siding with Democrats who have bamboozled them into thinking they need
No,
rights.
they didn't bamboozle them. They offered them treasury from the treasury. They put in they instituted the war on poverty. That is what made black Americans loyal to the Democrat Party. They will give anybody anything for taxpayer money to make sure that they vote Democrat. And look what they're doing to all of those people. They put out the word down in South America, come to the United States. This is what you can apply for. Just tell them you are a refugee, and you will get a green card, and you'll get all of the trimmings, Thanksgiving dinner and all the trimmings. That's the whole thing of the Democrat Party. They will break this country in order to maintain a voting edge, and it lays it out. Ben Tillman tells you that's what they did. They used the rope, the gun, the knife, and they made sure that they got the majority. And once they got the majority, they instituted civil rights for white people in the South. That's what they did. And then when they got to power and got what they wanted and got the South back on its feet, then it was Lyndon Johnson that decided that the image that was going out around the world of civil rights workers being civil rights activists being beaten with clubs and fired on with water hoses just wasn't the image that he could tolerate.
Yeah, and another thing that demonstrates the Democrats are still the racists of the day. The Democrat racists of the South blockaded and tried to keep blacks out of certain schools. What was that about? School choice. Today, they still oppose school choice. Poor blacks having a choice in their schools.
What they really are against is teaching anybody the truth. The Democrats cannot stand the truth. And I can tell you this, my own fellow black Americans will argue very hard for the Democrat position. They just will not listen to any information that is the truth. They want to believe what they believe. And that's why you cannot compromise with the Democrats, because they will compromise away our Constitution. They're trying to do it now. This is the latest. You heard about Black Lives Matter talking about the revolution will not tolerate the Constitution.
Yep, that's ultimately their goal. They're all communists.
That's exactly right.
They want to overthrow the Constitution.
And look, let's not forget one thing. The Democrat Party is the home of the Communist Party in this country. The Confederate Army was fighting on the side of communism. This country is the only country in the world right now that is a republic, a constitutionally limited republic. Our laws are the only laws that limit the Constitution is the laws that amend the Constitution. But the limits are on the government, not on us. And that's why everybody ought to be out there fighting like heck to maintain the First Amendment intact and not let it turn into a civil rights law. And that's what it is now, because like I said, the only people that can speak out about issues are the people that are favored by that particular amendment. Now, when you talk about that, what I'm talking about is if you say, okay, you know what, we ought to have some limits on abortion. Well, they bring out all these women and tell you that you're sexist and you're misogynist and all of that nonsense. They're not addressing the fact that the Black Lives Matter say that cops are killing black people at a higher rate and then making them not have the birth rate and all of that, when the abortion rate is what is hurting their fertility rate in this country. It is abortion that should be limited, not the right of a person to own a firearm. How are you going to limit whether or not somebody owns a firearm and then allow the unlimited killing of babies every day of the week?
Well, thank God we got people like you, Phil, Dell, Reverend Ewell, Milt, and many others out there trying to educate people. Thank you for what you're doing, Phil.
Well, thanks. And thanks for the compliment, because you put me in with Reverend Ewell. That is a real honor. But
have a great day.
All right, you too. Now, what I want to go a little bit more on this particular thing about this Black Lives Matter, because that is what this football taking a knee is about. They are going on the principles of Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. This should be unacceptable to anybody in this country to have this kind of nonsense be spoken and somebody take them seriously. This is. It says, this is the headline, Black Lives Matter leader warns, replace the Constitution or else this will happen. And then under it, it says, sounds like a terroristic threat to me. Right. And this is, it says, an activist racially motivated attack on the U.S. Constitution included a direct threat of violence against those who disagree with him. Blake Simmons, identified as a leader in the Black Lives Matter movement, wrote an editorial with a message made clear in its title, A New Constitution or the Bullet. Oh, man. Simmons wrote the Constitution is the root of virtually all of our problems in America. All of our problems. Going on to ridicule the nation's founders as genocidal rapists. A Constitution written by only white men, he asserted, will never serve the interests of black people. The Constitution was written for the ruling class of white men, which constructed whiteness to be more valuable than any other race. And further, he says that in an apparent attempt to further clarify his article's frank rhetoric, Simmons wrote that it is our human right to defend ourselves by any means necessary and overthrow a government that has been destructive to our people. He cited failed extremist efforts of decades past, proclaiming that now is the time for blacks to pick up where the Black Panthers left off and declare a new constitution, or it will be the bullet. The article was shared in a Free Free Republic Post, prompting a number of replies lambasting Simmons. Sounds like a terroristic threat to me, one reader responded. Another said the editorial represented the blatherings of an idiot. At least a few advocates made their support known via social media. Now, that kind of rhetoric is exactly why I'm against the football players and what they're doing. You see, I asked on this program a couple of weeks last week and the week before that, what is the beef? What are they angry at? And nobody really could come up with an answer. Well, this tells you that they believe that this country is a racist country and they're killing black folks all over the place. And this white professor from Duke University says that there are 6 tenets of racism in 6 categories. And it says structural racism, and that is assigning social value to human population contingent on misconceptions or inherent differences. Symbolic racism, rhetoric that legitimizes others. Institutional racism, incorporating and formalizing misperceptions of differences into society through public policy. See, this is what they want to say that is going on in this country. Institutional racism. That means that all of the police, all of the politicians, all of the office holders, all of them, all of the government workers, all of them had to be in on a plot to deny in an institutionalized fashion the rights of black Americans. Now, the only time that has ever happened in this country was under the Jim Crow laws. They incorporated all of these structures. That's 3 of them I just read. And then there's interpersonal racism, acting on such misperceptions in direct or face-to-face interactions. Insidious racism, unconscious belief in and perpetuation of these phenomena. Internalized racism among victimized populations accepting and manifesting negative portrayals. Systemic racism, the influence of these phenomena of multiple levels and across multiple dimensions of society. It's all gobbledygook, but it is a lie. And this is the kind of nonsense that these people, like the Simmons guy of Black Lives Matter, have taken up because these professors are teaching this garbage to our children. Again, that's one of the reasons why we need education reform. We need to put these professors out of these positions, because if there was somebody in these colleges trying to teach that the Bible was a good place to get a lesson to teach children on the golden rule, I guarantee you that guy would lead the band in getting that professor thrown out of that college. So this is what we have got to do. We have got to get ourselves together and start making sure that we understand our Constitution. Then we need to understand what goes and what and who is going to follow that Constitution, and then go to the voting booth and vote vigorously and as often as you can. And folks, I want to tell you that it's been great to be on this mic, and I'll see you again next week, and I'll have some more information, a lot more information. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next week.
You can also send emails to artofmichigan@hotmail.com, and most of all, continue to listen every Saturday and